Welcome to City Hall and good morning. Pastor Jimmy Cannard is here from the Village Baptist Church. He'll lead us in the invocation. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Gary Mars to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand?
Let's bow for prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this cool morning. Lord, we ask for rain. We pray for rain. We thank you for this council meeting. Thank you for our mayor, for our city. We ask your blessings upon it. Give them wisdom. Let the proceedings that take place here be honorable to you, benefit the city of Oklahoma, this state, wonderful country that we're in. We thank you for it and what you're going to do. We ask this in your precious name, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Every month, the South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club helps us identify one employee in the Oklahoma City system that stands out above all the others. And when you have over 4,000 employees, you can imagine what an honor it is to be selected. And this morning, we are honoring Joshua Adams of the South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club. Joshua, why don't you come on up, bring the rest of the crew from Public Works, and we'll have the clerk read the resolution. We'll get settled here.
Whereas Joshua Adams has been a city employee for 7 years and is an environmental technician in the environmental section of the Stormwater Quality Division of the Public Works Department. Whereas Joshua monitors the water quality in streams and rivers, maintains the sampling inventory and equipment, and maintains the floatable debris program on the Oklahoma River. Whereas Joshua is also the field safety officer and has been instrumental in compiling and keeping the proper material safety data sheets in the section's health and safety documentation current. Whereas Joshua consistently does quality work, pays close attention to details, doesn't take shortcuts, manages his time wisely, and always performs and completes tasks on schedule. Whereas Joshua Adams applies the same tenacity to the frequent unplanned tasks that require immediate attention and willingly took on additional field duties when the section was shorthanded while he continued to keep up with his assigned workload. Whereas Joshua Adams has taken the lead in training new interns, showing them how to perform their tasks correctly, efficiently, and safely. Whereas Joshua Adams' excellent work ethic, positive attitude, quality work, enthusiasm, and interest for his job have established him as an exemplary crew leader and earned him the respect of his supervisor and co-workers. Whereas this council desires to recognize Joshua Adams for his dedication, enthusiasm, and commitment to the citizens of Oklahoma City. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the city of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Joshua Adams, August 2012, South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month.
All right, now, Joshua, we have to vote on this. It isn't as easy as you thought. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. And it's unanimous. Let's show our appreciation and recognition of Joshua. You want to say anything? You want to thank anybody?
I'm very grateful that my peers would nominate me for an honor like this. Our team takes great pride in representing the city and serving the citizens of the city, and I'm glad to be a part of that team. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And a while ago, the pastor was praying for rain. This is a guy who's out in creek beds. He's not praying for rain. He's the guy that does so much for us, and we appreciate your work, and I'm glad we're able to honor you today, and you take back our best wishes to the crew.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Let's show our appreciation one more time. Yet just when you thought no one benefited from a drought, you meet a guy he said, actually, it makes our job a lot easier when we don't have any rain. Well, there you go. Yeah. Let's see. We are in the office of the mayor, and we have a presentation forthcoming by Roy Williams, the president of the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. Roy comes over quarterly to give us an update on economic development and other actions of the chamber. Welcome, Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor, members of council, Mr. City Manager. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here and to share just a little bit of information with you. Actually, there's about 5 different areas I want to speak very briefly on, and as is the custom, I'll be very brief and certainly available to answer any questions. The first is I wanted to bring you up to date a little bit on some retail initiatives. As you know, we're under contract with the city to work on destination retail and new-to-market retail. And in that programming area, one of the things we focus on is a presence at the International Council of Shopping Centers each year in Las Vegas, which is a huge initiative. And I'm proud to say we, again, led it this year. We had the largest turnout of local developers and retailers locally, as well as the number of meetings that we've had. For those of you who've ever been out there, it is a huge show. It uses up pretty much the entire convention center, which is a multi-million square foot facility. We have historically had to scurry all over that facility to try to get meetings with national developers, national retailers that we were chasing. Now they come to us, and almost every one of our meetings were held in our booth with them coming to us, wanting to know about our market and about our opportunities. So I say that because I think we've turned the corner on that. And it's interesting to see what is really driving the interest. And they told us repeatedly it was 2 things. One, the economic stability that Oklahoma City has been showing over the last several years. Increased per capita income, low unemployment, things like that. And the second thing is the OKC Thunder. It's phenomenal what impact that brand has, not just in sports, but in business, because it continually shows a very bright spot on what's going on in Oklahoma City. So we use that brand considerably in marketing Oklahoma City, and it's really paying off. The other thing about retail is we've been in the process of doing a search to fill the position that was vacated by Allison Oshel some time ago. And we announced that we have filled that position. We've hired a new staff person. Her name is Jessica Herrera. She's coming to us from El Paso, where she was actually a city employee, full-time, devoted to retail development and retail activities. So she has years of experience doing precisely of what we're trying to do. And not only has she done retail development, she also has been the regional multi-state chair of the ICSC program out there and the ULI program out there. She's bilingual. She has a very strong background in education, has her master's degree from the University of Texas at El Paso, and she'll start the end of this month. So we're very pleased, and we'll bring her here to introduce to you. The second area, more general in the economic development arena, we've seen in about the last 60 days all of a sudden a sort of an uptick in corporate inquiries, more so than we saw in the first 6 months, which we would sort of characterize as a time that companies have been holding back making decisions. They've been doing research, been doing their studies, doing their due diligence, but not pulling the trigger. And we're just now beginning to see in the last 60 days that change, and then beginning to make some decisions very quickly. We also are in the final stages of our national search for a new Executive Vice President of Economic Development to replace Robin Roberts-Krieger. We're down to the final candidates. We're going through those interviews, and we hope within the next week or two we're going to be able to announce who that new person is. Again, we've been doing a national search on that, and kind of going back to the retail stuff, we've seen phenomenal interest. We got candidates interested in this position that we never thought we would get interested, and it's because of what's going on here and the image that Oklahoma City is now showing the rest of the country. Third area I want to touch on, and I know you have read about this, but I want to emphasize it, is what's going on out at Tinker and the importance of what's taking place out there. The changes that are taking place and standing up this whole new sustainment wing is extremely significant, not only to the military, not only to the Air Force, but to Oklahoma City. I think most all of you know, and perhaps some of you were there when General Bruce Litchfield received his 3rd star, and he actually had received his 2nd star here at Tinker too. So he knows a lot about Oklahoma City and a lot about this particular base. Now, the Air Force is the focal point for weapon systems to support the warfighter, both are really all in depot maintenance, supply chain management, and installation support, and that's all driven out of Oklahoma City. The General's new role now includes oversight of the air logistics complexes in Robbins, in Georgia, and in Hill in Utah, as well as the global logistics support system that is at Scott in Illinois. So we also have a one-star general here, and now we have a three-star general that is over these one-star generals. So Oklahoma City is really now a huge decision-making entity in the entire Air Force logistics system. And we were chosen, as General Litchfield has said, to be this in the Air Force because of the support of this community to that base out there and everything this city has done, particularly the future focus of the Tinker Aerospace Complex, which is what the former General Motors facility was. They will tell you that was the linchpin, that made the difference. So we continue to have working with Tinker as a top priority for our organization. We recently were in Washington, D.C. We met with Pentagon officials, including the Secretary of the Air Force, who really couldn't say enough about what is going on in Oklahoma City and the relationship between the Air Force and Oklahoma City, and that was the real differentiator between us and other bases in the Air Force. Fourth thing, convention and visitors. Our economy is also being helped substantially by the hospitality industry. That is one of our fastest growing employment sectors. But not just employment, we have some numbers behind that. For the first 6 months of this calendar year, we are outpacing the nation in hotel occupancy and revenue percentage growth. I mean, think about that. We're leading the nation in that. We've had double-digit growth over the last year in occupancy. We're up 11.4%. The national average is 3.1%. Significantly, I'll underscore, significantly, we have outscored and outpaced the top 25 hotel markets in the United States. We're seeing double-digit growth in revenue per room, which is a real key metric to the ownership because that's profitability. We've had a 17.1% increase compared to the national average, which is 7.9, more than double. We beat 24 of the 25 markets. The one market we did not beat was Oahu, Hawaii. That was the only market in the United States. So when that's your competition in tourism, that's not bad. So we really have good momentum in this. We see continuation of new destinations, of new properties, et cetera. Final thing I want to mention has to do with some awards. Our organization doesn't focus on winning awards, but sometimes you win them. And when you do win the ones that we've recently won, we need to point them out. The first is the International Crystal Clarion Award. Each year, communicators who are professional communication people from across the country enter the Clarion Awards program that is sponsored by the Association for Women in Communications. Local winners are then forwarded to the national scene for competition consideration. This year, the Chamber received 8 of these awards. That has never happened in the history of this award. And our competition is the Wall Street Journal, Fortune 500 companies, those kind of companies. So we have won the top award, and we will be recognized as having more awards than anybody else and being singled out in this achievement. And then finally, we just came back from our International Professional Association meeting, the American Chamber of Commerce Executives, where we won a gold award, and then we won the Best of Show award there, and that was for our website, www.okcchamber.com. So that website has been named as the best Chamber of Commerce website in the nation. So we're pleased to share that with you. That concludes my comments, Mayor. Be happy to answer any questions if anybody has
Questions? Yeah, Ed.
Last night, the former 16-year mayor of Milwaukee, John Norquist, came and spent a lot of time in our downtown and came to speak at a town hall meeting on the boulevard, but remarked both privately and publicly that he thought, looking at our downtown, that it was ready for a department store, and went out of his way to say publicly that he thought Target would be especially interested, that if they were approached, he thought you had enough rooftops. He thought that they would be interested in doing it in an urban-friendly way as opposed to a big big
Right.
box downtown. What have you found in terms of department stores downtown? Is that an accurate assessment that we're ready for something like that? Or
Yes, in fact, we've had those conversations. The problem is nationally, department stores are contracting
Right.
instead of expanding, and I think kind of once they get through that. But they're also driven by rooftops, and we've still got to get more housing downtown to justify it, because they still will tell you that it's the neighborhood that's critical. It's not just people who are driving in and they work downtown. But there's interest. The national market knows what's going on, and will continue to push those opportunities.
something like a Target would be a department store and grocery?
Correct. Yeah, that's the kind of conversations that we've had with them, yes. And they would be urban. They wouldn't be what you
The big
normally
box.
see in a suburb. It wouldn't be an expansive parking lot and that kind of facility.
Do you have an opinion, either as an individual or representative of the chamber, about the boulevard and the different options?
You know, we don't have the engineering staff, we don't have the technical staff, and we want to see the boulevard built, you know, and to say we know best how it should be done would not be accurate. We don't know. But we do know that it's complex, that there's a lot of moving parts. It's a critical part of the interstate system. It's a critical part of the transportation system. It's a critical part of continuing to build the downtown in a good way. How that plays out, we're not smart enough to know.
Thank you.
Roy, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, Pat?
Roy, you mentioned retail. Do you have announcements or coming up close to making announcements for new retail in Oklahoma City?
There's a number of them, and there's so many different moving parts because of what's going on with the malls. Our malls here are doing very good. They're trying to upgrade. You know, Sears is closing theirs at Quail Springs. I think there's going to be an announcement shortly about what's going to be replacing that. We've been working with that potential tenant. Penn Square continues to talk about a remix of tenants as well as some expansion. So, yeah, I think you're going to hear a lot of announcements within the next year or two about new-to-market retail as opposed to expansion of existing retail.
So, Roy, could you talk to us just a little bit about the Outlet Mall and the success? I've seen your
I don't really
ad
have the exact numbers, but I do know that, you know, that's the first outlet mall that ever opened with 100% occupancy, and within the first year, they announced an expansion and probably getting ready to expand it again, and it certainly is exceeding, I think, nearly by 50% the projected sales that they had. We constantly talk with the owners as well as the management out there, and they're just blown away by how well it is doing. I think they're trying to do a little bit of shift in some of their marketing, that they feel they could do an even better job than what they're doing, even though they're knocking it out of the park right now.
I like the fact that you're talking about Quail Springs adding a mix and Penn Square adding a mix.
Right.
It signals to me that the Outlet Mall hasn't taken business, but it's added to the base of what's been available.
It
which
is. It's
what the idea
growing it.
was in the first
Yeah.
place.
We're not slicing the pie into smaller pieces. We're growing the pie.
Perfect. Thank you.
Roy, thank you for coming down.
pleasure.
Congratulations
Thank you.
again on the award.
Thank you.
We're now on to item 3, C, D, and E on the council agenda. These are appointments. I'll take a motion on all three. Comments or questions here? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously.
And
Item
Peter, just a really quick comment. I'm delighted to see Sam being appointed to the Wellness Center Committee.
Yeah,
I think he'll provide a lot of,
Great to get Sam back involved.
great to get Sam back involved, and a perfect place to get him involved. So thank you for doing that.
Item 3F. Pete, do we need executive session on this? Okay.
I'm prepared to move the resolution appointing Gary Payne as a municipal judge with an effective date of August 28th, which will be 2 weeks from today. He'll be sworn in that morning, and he will be ready to assume his duties that afternoon. In fact, we're doing some meetings to make sure he's lined up and ready to go that Tuesday.
Okay. Do we need a motion on the salary, or is that part of the resolution?
The salary is set.
Okay.
Yeah.
By ordinance, okay. So we have a motion and a second,
Yeah,
everybody?
the salary is $89,471.
Okay. Any comments or questions on item 3F? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
I would like to comment that going through this process, the city should be pleased with the quality of the applicants we received. We received 30 applications, and it was extremely difficult to reduce that below about 25. I mean, it was a very difficult process to get down to a short list, and I think it speaks well for the city and how well the municipal courts were managed under Judge Manger, and I was very pleased, again, at the quality of the applicants.
Well, and Pete, I know I speak for the council. We appreciate your work on this. This was a lot of work on a process and an important hire for us. So thank you for what you've done. Move on to item 4 on the council agenda. It's the Journal of Council Proceedings. Item 4A is to receive the Journal of Council Proceedings for both July 31st and August 7th. And item 4B is to approve the Journal of Council Proceedings for July 17th. All right, comments or questions on the Journal? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 5 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mr. Mayor, in addition to item 8C, which is listed as a withdrawal, that's a cell tower application that's listed as a withdrawal, I have some dilapidated unsecured, starting on page 16, under item 8G1, item E, 1340, Northwest 2nd Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner is removed, and item N, 101, Southwest 43rd Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has removed. Moving to item 8H1 on page 17, item C, 2812 Edgewater Drive, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item D, 3905 Flynn Avenue, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item E, 3240 Northwest Grand Avenue, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item I, 2700 South St. Clair Avenue, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item K, 427 Southwest 4th Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item L, 1706 Northwest 7th, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item M, 519 Southwest 10th Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item N, 3206 Northwest 12th Street, west of Abbey Strickland, again the owner has secured. Item O, 208 Northeast 14th Street, west of Abbey Strickland, there is a new owner. Item X, 2108 Northeast 23rd Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item Z, 2617 Northwest 24th Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item DD, 3117 Southwest 28th Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item MM, 2917 Southwest 49th Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Item NN, 2440 Southwest 50th Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. Moving to page 18, under item PP, 543 Southeast 71st Street, west of Abbey Strickland, the owner has secured. And finally, double W, 1212 Southwest 128th Street, west of Abbey Strickland, again, the owner has secured.
Any other requests for uncontested continuances? All right, we'll recess the council meeting, convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. There are 2 items. All right, comments or questions on the MFA? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCMFA, convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. 2 items. All right, comments or questions on the PPA? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCPPA, convene the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust for 1 item. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the EAT? Pat?
A couple of questions, Your Honor. Is this the projects going in and out this plant on North Portland? And I understand from the right up here, there'll be some retail operations there as well.
Yes.
Have we done any publicity, or do we intend to do any publicity to make sure the public is aware of the fact they can get CNG vehicles refueled at that location?
Yes, we will. And, when it's complete, we have a third-party operator for that will assist us in that process.
Because that's a major issue with the development of CNG vehicles, is having adequate number of stations where they could refuel. And we're making some progress in Oklahoma City. We're up to almost 80 stations in the Oklahoma City areas.
I was also unclear as to where the location was, so perhaps we could be real specific about where that is. Marcia, address?
At 11505 North Portland. We're about 4 blocks north of Hefner on Portland.
Great.
Or south of John Marshall.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Ready to vote the EAT? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket. Okay, we have a motion and a second. David, did you have an individual consideration you wanted to bring forward?
Yes, Your Honor. Item BE on page 13.
BE, okay, we'll come back to that in just a moment. Anybody else, Pat?
Your Honor, just a question on item E.
Item E. All right. BA from Gary. Larry?
S2, Your Honor.
S2.
And Mayor, if I could, 6BB and BD.
BB and BD. Okay. David, you want to get us started?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This pertains to a donation, accepting a donation from Miss Mary Blankenship Pointer. She and some young ladies are here with her, as well as a gentleman from the South Oklahoma City Foundation. And I would just like to give perhaps Ms. Pointer the opportunity to come up and say a few words. I think it really shows a lot of initiative on Mary's part. Sometimes you have to take on a project and kind of push it through, and Mary certainly has done this for the benefit of the entire city, and especially Ward 5. And then perhaps we can have some other speakers concerning the donation.
Okay, Mary?
Thank you. The vision for it's a sculpture garden that will actually, we have plans that we're drawing for the sculpture garden in Merle Medley Park. We'll have 6 to 7 sculptures. This is accepting the first sculpture that's been purchased. The vision for the sculpture garden came from Leadership Arts Oklahoma, and they were talking about the aesthetic beauty, how it increases the value of the property. We have a beautiful walking track around the park, and we have a city sidewalk, thank you very much, that it attaches to the city walking track. So we'll place the sculptures along the city sidewalk that attracts in, and it will face Pennsylvania. It's an exciting project. A lot of people drive past Merle Medley Park to Early Wine Park instead of stopping there. It's a underutilized park, so we think that this will bring people to the park. And
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Was anyone else wanting to speak from the foundation? We also have the family of Merle Medley, Linda and her daughter, Sarah, if they'd like to speak.
And in fact, Stephanie signed
Stephanie,
up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Speak.
Mr. Mayor and
Yes.
City Council, Harry Wilson, 1520 Southwest 71st. I'm president of the Foundation for South Oklahoma City, and we're established to try to encourage folks to make charitable contributions to our foundation, which support worthy causes of different kinds, including art. One of the biggest programs we've helped along was the SHINE program, sponsored by County Commissioner Brian Bond. Our donations to us are tax deductible. We're a 501c3, and we pass them through to the project that they were made for. In this case, the sculpture garden in Merle Medley Park, and we encourage folks to support that. So far, the actual makeup of the sculpture park has not been determined, but that's the next step. I don't remember what Mary, how many statues did you? 6 or 7 statues would really be an addition to that park and beautify it, make it special. It's a heavily used park on the south side on South Pennsylvania, and lots of traffic goes by. There's a large apartment complex next to it and a school, and there used to be a YMCA there, but I'm not sure what it's being used for now. But anyway, the foundation is there to help this project and any others. We also have supported OCCC and other things that are good for the south side neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. Stephanie? Good morning. We will need your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Stephanie Medley Aarons from Burke Burnett, Texas, 815 Sugarbush Lane. I'm just exit number 1 over the Texas exit, so close as I can get. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much, and I've been in the military for the past 20 years, and I've retired, and I want to let you know that Dad's Park is lovely. I'm very grateful, my family's very grateful, and I'm very proud that the city continued to take such a great interest in this park, and he would be tickled. He would be really tickled. And my family has enjoyed it every time we come to town. It's something to look forward to in the future. And I just wanted to thank Mary for thinking of this, and thank you, Foundation, and we look forward to the continued growth of this park. So on behalf of my family, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Mayor, if I could just say thank you to Mary as well. This is a really exciting initiative. I don't think there are very few things in Oklahoma City that Mary Blankenship Pointer hasn't touched. And being able to start an initiative like this, I hope many will follow her lead and take on the challenge. So thank you, Mary, so much. Look forward to seeing the park completed.
It's a great project. David, anything else?
No, sir. It is a great park, and again, thank you, Mary, for providing the leadership for this. And we're just looking for bigger and better things in the future. Thank you.
Pat, you wanted to speak on item E?
Just a quick question, Your Honor. This is a renewable pricing agreement, and it omits the phrase, let me find it here, I'm sorry, including price. That was in the previous 2 items that are also pricing agreement. Do these include price? And if they do, why was the phrase omitted? Because it seems like it's sort of inconsistency.
Amy Simpson is here, though, from the procurement office, and maybe she can answer that.
Well, if that was omitted, it was unintentional. There was no price increase, so it did include the same price.
Good. Thank you very much, John.
Gary, item BA.
Yeah, just a couple of questions on both these items are on the windscreen, and I see David in the room here.
We do have a presentation on that item. Would it be helpful to see the presentation before you make your comments, or you want to?
Sure.
Okay. We have Kyle Weedle is here from Elliott and Associates, and as we do on all MAPS 3 preliminary reports and such, we bring them to council for presentation. So, Kyle?
Kyle, we wanted your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. Kyle Weedle, 419 Northwest 28th Street. So a little bit of background here. I'm sure you're at least marginally familiar with it. Started out with roughly 72 options of trying to build a windscreen that sufficed all the MAPS 3 criteria, which included projectable surface, knocking down the wind speed for the area. And what we're presenting today is actually the top 4. Through this process, we incorporated actual wind tunnel testing with the company out of Colorado Springs, experts in their field, CPP Wind. And through extensive research, we found that it's our recommendation that we use a 40-foot high windscreen with roughly a 10-foot gap at the bottom. This will allow for maximum return on what what we consider to be performance for not as much money. It provides fairness to all lanes, shielding all 7 lanes of the race course while maintaining the fairness throughout them. This option, which is option 2 in the presentation that we had made, would span the first 500 meters of the course, and it would, which is the most popular 500 meters, it's the most critical 500 meters, and it would allow every race to be run, which is the last 500 meters, to be shielded. So every race that's run does get some sort of protection, including the most popular race. This structure itself, 40 feet tall, as I had mentioned, would be built in 24-foot modules based upon a truss system. These modules can be added as more money becomes allocated or available, or it can stay at the 500 meters. On this, the screening material itself would be a powder-coated 4-by-8-foot sheet of perforated metal, which means they can easily be swapped out. No problem if something were to happen to one panel. You don't have to take down the entire 24-foot panel. You can take down a highly manageable 4-by-8 sheet. This also allows the projectable surfaces noted, and the powder coat would be a durable solution to all this. So. All right. Just to reiterate, this is our recommended option, which is the option 2, which does, like I said, protect all lanes from the prevailing winds, which are out of the south. It provides protection in the full length of the course in front of the proposed boathouses, as well as the course lighting, which is also a MAPS 3 a MAPS 3 project, and it does provide the projectable surface and protection for the most popular race. Just on a side, personal note, Mike Knopp of the Oklahoma City Boathouse Foundation recently was at the Olympic Games, and it was his opinion that what we're building on the boathouse or on the riverfront right now for the boathouses in that entire district far surpassed even the Olympic Games and their facilities there. So, and this is just a bigger picture of what's happening there in the world-class venue that is the Oklahoma City River and the Boathouse District.
Sounds like an exciting project.
Absolutely.
When do you think installation will take place?
It kind of depends on a few of the factors as far as the approval process and the ability to get foundations in before winter. Obviously, if some of the sandy soils in that area require some rather deep drilling to get stable footings for something that's going to be resisting wind, if we could get them in before winter, that would be great. But obviously, when winter shows up is kind of a negotiable timeline that we can't really control.
What is the length of the windscreen?
The length of the windscreen we're proposing would be 500 meters, so the finish line working backwards until basically the money runs out. So.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions? Gary?
Well, the question I have is, one of the items is to go ahead and approve the contract for them to finish the design and the specifications that are ready to go out for bid on that project. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I think there's still some people that like to have a discussion about whether the Whitewater needs to be under contract so we can see what you get with Whitewater before we do the windscreen. If we approve this today and he finalizes the plans and then they're put on hold until we make that determination, are the plans still going to be valid when we need to go out for bid on them?
Sure. We can hold those for a while.
So they don't get old, or wouldn't need to be revisited at some point?
No, sir.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. We appreciate you coming down.
Thank you very much.
Larry, item S2.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This is a $20,000, up to $20,000 grant to the Friends of Northwest 10th Street. Kim Cooperhart, I see in the back, has been very much involved from a staff standpoint. The Friends of Northwest 10th Street have 3 ongoing committees, one for education, one for beautification, and third for security. They're endeavoring to revitalize Northwest 10th from I-44 out to the west of Lake Overholser. They've been able to put together a consortium of organizations, including OSU OKC, DHS, Western Heights School, plus businesses and neighborhoods along the way, Greenvale and Gary's Ward, Briarwood, Corbin Park, and Hilldale. They've done some great things so far, and this will require $1 from the Friends for every dollar of city money that goes in. So it's a very good way to get more bang for the buck, and I heartily endorse it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Larry. Meg, you have 2 items you want to speak about?
Yes, Mayor. There are a whole series of things throughout this agenda that are green, and I just wanted to mention 2 of them. And one, item BB, is a comprehensive recycling program, which we're going to begin in our city facilities. And I was very pleased to hear that. I did ask the manager this morning if this would provide any opportunity for downtown residents to avail themselves of this, and I was reminded that we have placed a recycling opportunity outside the public library downtown, right near where the Smokies bikes are, and we envision placing a number of others downtown for the use of downtown residents. So I just wanted to remind folks that that opportunity for recycling is now available. And item BD is references water taxi, and they have received a grant to convert the power of their boats from gas to electric, substantially reducing the carbon footprint of our boats. And I thought it was a very innovative and creative solution to another opportunity to green our downtown. So I just wanted to recognize Water Taxi for their interest in doing this.
Okay.
Wasn't there, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't there a CNG filling station on the canal at one point?
There was, and they did not work well with the boats, and so that's been repositioned to one of our facilities. And so we did have a CNG facility down there, but the boats, with the tank on the boats and such, it just wasn't a good fit. So we ended up not going forward with that and repositioning that to another city facility. Very good memory, Councilman.
On certain things. I couldn't tell you what I had for breakfast this morning.
Ready to vote the consent docket? Comments or questions from anyone else? All right, cast your votes. Consent docket passes unanimously. We're on to the concurrence docket. Just 3 items today. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions here? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Moves us on to item 8. These are items that require a separate vote. First is a zoning case in Ward 3 at 10524 Southwest 29th Street. It's currently AA Agricultural District, and it would become a new PUD. Larry?
Thank you, Your Honor. Has anybody signed up to speak, Francis? Yes. I'd like the applicant, if he would, to come forward, because this has been a long journey with some very creative proposals put together to get to this point.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me is Anthony Mirzai, who's the property owner, and Kendall Dillon. As the councilman said, this has been a long process. We started out with a neighborhood meeting with 50 protesters, and by the time we got to Planning Commission, there were no protesters. So we worked with the neighbors, and we came up with a solution for this 22-acre PUD to have senior independent living and commercial in the corner. If you'll remember, we had a rezoning case for the balance of the quarter section about a month ago that zoned what you see as AA as to R1 residential. So with that, we then came with the PUD that allows the commercial and senior independent living, and we feel that we've created a compatible PUD with the residential zoning, and Planning Commission recommended approval, and we'd ask for the same.
Unless there are any questions from the council, I'd like to thank the applicant for working with the neighbors. The Planning Commission also got involved. It was a tremendous cooperative effort, and it meets the requirements of the Oklahoma City Plan, whereby you have commercial and residential mixing together. There'll be walking between the two. The traffic situation has been looked at, so it's just a real testimony to how things can get done with cooperation. So thank you all. I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on item 8A? All right, cast your votes. It passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 8B is a series of 3 easements. We'll vote on them separately. These easements are being closed for one reason or another. Item 8B1 is in Ward 7. Skip, you okay with this?
Yes, I haven't received any calls in reference to this. I believe Mr. Kuhn is here, but based on the fact that we haven't received any protest and I have no problems with it, it's been approved by the Planning Commission, I would suggest that we move forward.
All right, how about a second? Cast your votes on item 8B1. Passed unanimously. Item 8B2 is in Ward 8. Pat?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a closing of a water line easement at the Epworth Villa. There's expanding the facilities out there. And did anybody sign up to this one? There were no protests. It was approved by the Planning Commission unanimously. I move for approval.
All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. And item 8B3 is back in Ward 7. Skip?
Yes, and this also is a closing of a easement, I believe, in the alley in reference to a development project off Northwest, I'm going to say Broadway Extension, north of Britton Road, and I've spoken with the representative, Mr. Box. Haven't received any objections to the project, so I would suggest I would move it.
All right, do we have a second on item 8B3? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8C has been withdrawn. Item 8D is a final hearing on an opportunity to address the issue we've had with Bricktown and ACM on the ABC issue. This would get us in compliance with state law. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on item 8D? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8E is a companion ordinance. Cast your votes, and it passed unanimously as well. Item 8F is a public hearing. This is the second time this has been before the council. This would put us in compliance with state law as well. I have a motion here. Okay. Anyone here wishing to speak on item 8F? All right, cast your votes. We'll move that item forward as well. Item 8G is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anyone here signed up to speak? Okay. Is there anyone here that showed up to speak on any item listed under 8G, dilapidated structures? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. And item 8H is a long list of unsecured items, and we have one person who has signed up to speak. Max McCulley? Yes, Max, come on up. And Max, we'll need your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Max McCulley. I live at 740 Southwest 52nd, Oklahoma City.
And which item did you want to speak about?
This is pertaining to 315 Northwest 26th Street in the Paseo District.
Okay, that's in Ward 2, Ed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I want to thank you, Mayor and City Council, for hearing me on this matter. We've been taking problems left and right on this for about 6 years. My daughter owns the property directly on the west side of it. It just keeps going downhill. They put a renter in, they tear it up, they sell drugs out of it, numerous things. Last year we were over with police officers, and there was 6 people that was taken to jail for dealing drugs right off the front porch. The Paseo District is really fed up with it. Their hands are kind of tied on what they can do. We just want the structure either brought up to codes or, unfortunately, have to level it. There's no windows in it now. They think they put a Band-Aid on it. They put a new door on the front because somebody literally tore the door off. The roof is caving in. My tenants that are in my daughter's home, 2 young ladies, their mother and father are very concerned because They now have slapped another tenant in there, and same thing again. Drug problems, traffic all night, loud music. And with the way the neighborhood's constructed back then, you share a driveway with two homes. They've damaged cars for my tenants. My tenant's mother looked through the window the other day, and the house is infested with rodents and bugs. There's a cellar out back that goes under the kitchen that is definitely a health issue. People urinating and going to the bathroom in the backyard, and we're just not getting nowhere, so I thought I'll come talk to City Council.
Well, it's in the process, and we're working it. Charles, do you have anything to add on this property?
That's what he was talking about, or some of the reasons that it's being brought forward.
Okay, so we've been alerted, and we're working it through the process, and hopefully we'll get a resolution that meets everybody's satisfaction.
I thank you for your time.
All right, thanks for coming down.
How long has this been on the radar with code enforcement?
Approximately about 6 years as far as Oklahoma City Police, and I call Mary and David at Action Line. I've become very good friends with them. They know me by first name basis. I've contacted them so many times. And they go out and they put a sticker on the door, just kind of the process of what you do, and the guy will totally ignore it and just ignore it, and eventually they go out and they find he's put a Band-Aid on it again by slapping up either a new door or putting one new window in. Last tenant in the home was a roofer. He got up and put about 12, 15 shingles on the roof and called it fixed. There are codes over there. When we remodel, my kids have moved out of there, and we have it as a rental property because they just got fed up of, we can't even sell the property because of the issue of the house next door. Nobody wants to pay $70,000 for a house that's got a house next door that's not probably worth $5,000, if maximum. And
Charles, it's on dilapidated, but have you looked at is the roof severe enough that it's dangerous? Is this moving toward?
Well, it's not in bad enough shape to be torn down, basically. I mean, we've had calls on it. We've had calls on it. High grass, property maintenance, just code enforcement calls. The owners usually, they'll comply, and if they don't, we've cut the yard or cleaned up the junk, or we've abated the nuisance for them and applied it. But right now, it's not structurally unsound.
And does it have a series of liens on it then for work that we've already done?
It would. I don't have that information in front of me at this time, but if we've done the work and they're not paid, they would still be in place.
Are the utilities on?
Not that we would know. We don't check the utilities for unsecured.
there hasn't been electricity on in that property for approximately 2 years. They live in that house with no electricity. They light up camping lanterns and so forth for their lighting. No water. That's the health issue of where I went and the direction I went in to try to. I don't want nobody's property torn down, but I mean, when I'm kind of one of these old boys that brought up what I got to do, I feel like the next guy will have to do. If you're sitting there paying a mortgage of $700 a month, and the old boy next door to you is not paying nothing, so he don't care, and you can't sell your property to even just to break even to walk out of it, and there's nothing clean about it, period, when it comes to the utility issue. I mean, as far as there hadn't been utilities on for a long time. I've checked that out with different avenues of calling city councilmen and talking to Paseo Neighborhood Association. The president of the neighborhood association is a rather elderly man now. He's getting up in years, but he's fought it for, he said, 10 years, and just gets nowhere with the guy.
I didn't think you could live in a house that didn't have water or
It actually, City County Health is the one that handles those complaints, and that's my understanding also.
And I contacted them, and they, unfortunately, they blew me off. They told me to call Action Line. I called the health department, I've called every utility that I could think of, and the health department, though, just literally drew a deaf ear to me.
We'll contact the health department about it.
Charles, is there a number of code violations that would trigger more substantial action by the city?
Usually not. Property maintenance will trigger a more severe unaddressed property maintenance over the years will usually result in unsecured and then eventually dilapidated. But most of the nuisance complaints, high grass and weeds, junk and debris, do not trigger. It doesn't contribute to a higher degree of violation as dilapidated.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything that, in your opinion, from serving in the capacity that you serve in, that the council could do in reference to strengthening our ordinances to get a better handle as it relates to your enforcement and your staff being able to put a heavier, enforcement on these properties? This property exists in was it for sale, but we got them all over the city. And I've had people to call me, they can't purchase a property because of the dilapidated conditions of a property next door. And like you said, you go out and you do what you can do under the ordinance, and the next thing you know, it's a Band-Aid that comes off 6 months later, and you're going back through the same process again. And it just seems like it's really, destroying a lot of communities and the development or the sustainability of good developed communities. And, I've heard this same story before about City County Health. People are saying that, people are squatting in these properties, no utility, no water, and yet and still you call City County Health and they say you need to call the city. And it just seems like that there is a complete lack of coordination that exists between two major entities that should be focused upon, if first and foremost, is the health concerns of individuals within the area. And, I'm willing to support whatever we could do as far as strengthening the ordinance within the power that exists here at the council, because this is just absolutely ridiculous. Some of these conditions, some of these properties that these landowners get by with, and it just, like this man said, it's just not just to those individuals who are doing everything that they can to maintain and preserve their property, and it's being destroyed indirectly by the property next door.
Because that photo there, that's, they got it on a good day. I've seen it waist high, no door on the front, trash that you couldn't even see them front windows in that house because the trash was stacked so tall. Then you've got a half a dozen folks out there drinking whiskey at 10 o'clock in the morning, screaming at 21 and 22-year-old young ladies that are attempting, they're school teachers in that district. I was very fortunate to get them in while the house was vacant. They rented the home from us. They wouldn't have rented if there was somebody in the dwelling at that particular month. And they love the home. They put a lot of money into it as far as renting from us and want to stay. But I really feel like I'll lose them probably in the next 3 or 4 months if something isn't done with this problem, because we're still got grass growing season. So I mean, it's cut now, but it will, by the end of the season, it will look bad again.
Actually, all our actions are set forth by the state statutes on all of the nuisance complaints are set forth, so we act within their scope. For the grass, then this is part of our notice for this was the grass. The grass was cut. They still have some openings that they're not addressed. Our contractor will go out there and secure them.
Well, I wonder if this should be on the legislative committee's agenda then to look at perhaps asking for some changes in state law that might give us some more discretion. Something to consider at the next legislative meeting. Can we get that on the agenda for there? Okay.
I thank you all very much for your time.
All right. Thanks for coming down. Ready to vote on unsecured structures? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8I is a permit to hold the Tunnel to Towers 5K event in Ward 6. Looks like we have a gentleman here who's responsible for this event. What can you tell us about Tunnel to Towers 5K?
I'm Don Garrett with DG Productions, 14420 South Meridian. Tunnels for Towers is a foundation done in the memory of Stephen Seiler, who was a New York City police fireman who responded to the 9/11 and lost his life in one of the towers. And we wanted to have this event here in Oklahoma City. It's one of 100 throughout the country commemorating. The funds go to support the children of the firefighters lost, not only the 9/11, but throughout, and also children of military people who have given the ultimate sacrifice. So it's a great thing. They wanted to get proximity to the Oklahoma City Memorial because of the closeness of the causes there. And we're asking for I think it's about 3 hours of the streets there to be closed just for the finish line.
If people wanted to sign up, what should they do?
They should go to dgroadracing.com and sign up there. Of course, we offer the city council complimentary entries. We'd like to see you all come out and run the 5K with us. So,
bet you would.
Is this the first time you've run this?
This will be the first time for this event. Now, it's not the first time. It's the first time in Oklahoma City. It's been going on in New York for a few years now, and other cities throughout the country. So we're just part of a bigger scene here.
Thanks for coming down. Meg, you want to make a motion on this?
Sure, I'd move approval.
All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Item 8J is a revocable permit to hold a 3-day multicultural arts festival, and the request comes from the Oklahoma Black Museum and Performing Arts Center. Is anyone here representing this organization? All right. Ed, it's in Ward 2. You want to make a motion on this? Okay. Cast your votes on item 8J. It passes unanimously. Item 8K, I understand we do not need executive session on this item?
That's correct.
How about a motion then? Okay. We're adopting a resolution. All right. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. And item 8L, I understand we do need executive
Yes,
session
sir.
on that? All right. How about a motion to go into executive session on 8L? Cast your votes. And it passed unanimously. Item 8M.
No.
No. How about a motion there? Strike? Cast your votes. Item is struck. Item 8N is claims recommended for denial. Has anyone signed up to speak? Looks like we have a couple of people. Melissa Parker. Good morning, Melissa. We will need your name and address for the record.
It's Melissa Parker, 1411 Linwood Boulevard, Oklahoma City, 73106. That's my office address.
Okay. And what can you tell us about the claim?
The claim I filed is, I'm basically disputing the validity of the bill that I received. We received the bill that the city contractors had been awarded the job of removing the weeds, I believe, let's see here, rank weeds, thickets, or noxious plants. And the reason I just dispute it is that we have had instances where city contractors have done the jobs, but this is one where my contractors actually affirmed that they are the ones that did the job, not the city contractors. So we have a dispute as to who really did the work. I brought my contractors with me today, and I've got, actually in reviewing the paperwork and the photos last night, now I'm actually a little more confused. We received the original notice in March. I gave notice to the tenants. My contractors mowed it the week ending March 17th. The notice was actually due on March 20th. I called around the 21st or 22nd to see if the notice had been cleared. I was informed it had not been cleared, so every couple of days I would call, because I know they don't always get right out on the day it's due. And I would call every couple of days to find out if it had been cleared or not. I'm not sure the date on this. I spoke to the inspector, Pam Foote. I actually had my mowing contractors with me in the office. Said, you know, it's not clear. I don't understand why. We've been mowing it. Excuse me, I keep checking. And she said that it was the vines and the overgrowth. We discussed leaving the vines on the back side of the house for privacy and security. She agreed with me on that. And so my contractors went over there approximately on April 26th and pulled all of the vines and overgrowth out, and they actually left the debris from that in the driveway for us to come by and pick up with our trailer, and we took care of it. They also treated the area with Roundup so it wouldn't be a recurring problem. Well, on Tuesday, May 1st, one of my tenants at the property called and said, somebody's out here, I don't know who they are, I've never seen them, they're mowing, and you guys just took care of this. So I was unable to go. Another lady in my office wasn't there, so I actually sent my contractors that day just immediately over there to respond. They took photos. They were actually mowing another section of the property that wasn't part of the issue that had not been resolved, where they actually scalped the lawn. I mean, there were ruts and visible dirt showing now at this point because we'd already mowed it, so the only thing they could do was scalp it. On May 2nd or 3rd, I called to speak to, I just called the main number, the 297-2317 number, to find out, you know, did we in fact get this billed out to a contractor? And I was told, yes, it was, just I'd receive it. On Saturday, May 5th, I sent someone from my office to take their own pictures to be able to compare with the pictures taken on May 1st to make sure everything matched up. And on about between May 12th to May 14th, we actually received the city bill for $325. I requested the corresponding photos on May 15th because I was out of the office at that time, and I received them on the 17th. On May 24th, I emailed the inspector, Ms. Foote, to request a meeting at the property to discuss exactly what we missed. You know, I thought we had covered everything. My contractors took care of the vines, and I was concerned about the fact that my contractors said they did it, and the city contractors turned in a bill for it. And I sent her the email, you know, I understand you're busy. If you could just give me a call, I'll meet you over there. I'm less than 2 minutes from the property where my office is. And she called me the next morning and said, yes, I am very busy, but the guidelines are on the back of the notice you receive. Remember, it includes all easements. Well, I still to this day am not really sure what happened. I would like to meet her at the property. Like I said, it was at her discretion. Call me, tell me I have 2 minutes to get there and I'll make it. I just want to meet you there and make sure this doesn't happen again. So I've got an issue of concern where I don't want it to keep happening. If I don't know exactly what I did wrong, I can't not do it again. Yeah. But I'm also concerned.
How often are you interacting with city staff traditionally? Is this a monthly situation or yearly?
It is actually. We have probably 600 rental houses. And I have some also that I manage for owners. I actually keep this spreadsheet with my little packet here. I've got my item numbers, the address, the issue, the inspector, the due date, and my notes and everything. So I'm in frequent. I actually have a really good relationship with the city. I've been doing this for a little over 5 years now, where I've just kind of built a relationship with every inspector. Pam is new to me. I don't really know her that well. So, you know, maybe she's used to property managers who don't do what they need to do. I completely understand that. We've certainly dropped the ball ourselves at times. So
you're with a management company, not the owner?
Well, yeah, it's under Property Management Services. Yeah, it's 1134 Ellison LLC. So
it's in Ward 6. Meg, you have an opinion you want to offer?
Amy, do you have some information about the dates and things? Or what was missed? 'Cause I understand the concern here. If there's something that was missed, we need to at least help identify what it was.
Well, if it would be helpful, I have some pictures from code enforcement.
And the dates on that were, we basically gave our notice on March 6th or 7th, and if they mowed it on March 17th, then May 1st is when we actually mowed it. And within 6 months after you give the original notice, if it gets out of compliance anytime during the 6 months, we can go back and mow it again without any additional notice. So I don't know what happened between March 17th when they mowed it and May 1st. So it might have been.
I'm sorry. We actually went back on April 26th and removed the issue. It was approximately April 26th. shortly after I'd spoken, and she said it's the vines and overgrowth, so they went on the 26th, roughly.
Let's see the
and took care of
pictures.
that. Yeah.
These are the pictures from May 1st.
And what are we looking at here?
That's the posting of the notice on the property.
Okay.
And so I'm struggling, is that before or after it was mowed?
That's before it was mowed.
And again, Amy, I could be wrong, but doesn't the grass have to be 12 inches before we site?
That one.
Oh, whoops, okay. There we go. Okay. And so, Melissa, was the area that we're looking at now, was that an area that you cleaned up or did not clean up?
Hear you. She's the contractor. She
Okay, and if you, we'll need your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Brenda Grigg, 208 Southeast 25th.
Okay.
The area, there's a small fence there that you can see. Inside that fenced area is what we had cleaned out.
Is that the property line?
Yeah, that's the property line, inside the area of the fence. Everything to the left-hand side of that belongs to the other property.
Is that the fence we're looking at right there
Yes,
on the right side?
that's the edge of the fence line right there on that photo. We had cleaned all that out. The underbrush that was laying in the picture prior to that one that's in the street is everything that we had cleaned out of that area.
So, Amy, do you think our folks went and did it at a time when it had, related to the previous notice? Do you think they went sometime within that 6 months and performed
Yes.
the work? Okay, so
Yes.
there's no dispute that the contractor, that the city's contractor actually did the work?
There is no dispute.
That's our dispute.
Okay.
Okay, do you disagree that our contractor went out and performed
Yes.
work? Or do you disagree that our contractor did work but didn't need to do it?
Well, either one of those makes sense to me. I'm sorry.
Well, okay, let's try that again. Either they didn't do any
do
work,
anything. Okay.
or they did perform some work when you thought it didn't need to be done. I mean, in part of your conversation, you said that they did mow and they rutted
This
the
is true.
lawn and
Yeah,
that
they did
so
mow,
they did do
yes.
some work.
Yes, the pictures that I have of what they did to the lawn, yeah, when it didn't need to be mowed. And that's what was interesting to me is they mowed, when I requested some of these pictures I didn't get. When I requested, I sent my request on May 15th for the supporting documentation, and I got 2 to 4 pictures, but I didn't see any of these. None of these came through in my request.
Well, if you haven't seen this work, why don't you get with Amy?
Sure.
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
my issue is that we have a contractor that we've paid to do this
Right.
work, and we need to be paid for it.
Sure.
But I appreciate your concern and the thoroughness, it would appear, that you try to stay on top of this. So if you would please get with Amy, let's make sure there's a full file. Each of you see all the same photographs. But I would ask that we keep this on for denial.
Okay.
And we'll get with Charles, too, and his folks, and further discuss it.
Thank you. Let's just make sure we clarify for your benefit, so this doesn't happen again.
Okay.
Okay?
One other person that has signed up, Charles Graham. Good morning, Charles.
Morning, how you doing?
Good, we'll need your name and address for the
Charles
record.
Graham, 1508 Canvasback Drive, Aubrey, Texas.
Okay.
And I'm in here in support of Missy Berry. She's not here, but we had property damage, well, I had property damage on a property over 5708 North Meridian, where a main line busted and water ran into my home and damaged some property. And they had pictures, I think. I bought pictures, and they should be. It should be under Mitzi. Yeah. No, those pictures that you're seeing there, those are her property, the damage that was done. I brought pictures, but I don't know what file.
Well, is the dispute over the property that was damaged or whether or not the city is at fault?
Right. Right. Well, she's actually my tenant. I think the dispute is the city is at fault for the damages.
Do you agree the issue is whether or not the city is responsible?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So let's concentrate on that then. The city is responsible. Why?
For the property damage of my home. Mud, water, clay, all ran into the basement of my property. At no disturbance of ours. It wasn't on my property, and the water ran in on the property. And the letter that I got in the mail, it said that it was alleged damages to the property, and it wasn't alleged. Here they are right here, of all the damages that I've sustained that I had to go in and take care of in order for her to still be, a resident.
I see. So you own the property?
Yes, sir. I am the property
and you
owner.
had someone renting the property and living?
Yes, sir. At the time.
Amy, what can you tell us about the water line break?
There is no prior notice of any problem with this water main line, no prior history of any sort of breaks.
Where was the
We
break?
acknowledge the water line break happened.
Yes, the line break did happen.
Where did the break occur?
The break occurred at 5460 North Meridian.
Was it like out in the street or?
Yes.
Apparently it occurred at 3:57 a.m., and then the city crew arrived at the scene at 4:40 a.m. to begin replacing the damaged portion of the water main. And then we apparently didn't receive any notice that this gentleman was having a problem until 11:32 a.m.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
Yes, but she did, and that's the dispute. I spoke with her, and she actually had a job interview that morning, so she did wake up and contact them, and she woke up to the middle of the night with 4 inches of water or more, in the basement of the home.
Right.
And then they recommended to her that she give them a call back when they get finished, when she gets back that sometime that day, where they can call in a crew to actually suck up the water and come in and fix the damages that had already occurred. And by that time, we're going to have mold damage and into my sheetrock. It ran in through the garage. I mean, just numerous amount of...
Right. Well, first of all, know that we're sorry this happened, and,
Yes, sir.
that you've been impacted and your property's been damaged. State law, and Amy, interrupt me if I don't express this accurately. State law prohibits a municipality from paying a claim unless we've had a prior notice that there was a problem in the area. And what we're being told here is that there had been no notice about prior notice, and therefore we cannot legally pay the claim, even if we chose to. Is that pretty much correct?
Yes, and the
Amy?
crew responded quickly.
You're not the first person who's come in here with this type of issue, and we've had to deal with it, and we've actually talked to people at the state legislature trying to get some changes that would allow us more discretion, but at this point we don't have the discretion to pay the claim, even if the council had the will to want to pay you. So we're not legally allowed to pay you.
Okay, and I understand that. I'd just like to add, as I sit here and I listen to all the people come up and they talk about properties and people being responsible, and I hear some of the other stuff that y'all have going on in Oklahoma City. I just recently moved to Texas, and I was proud to be I'm an Okie, and I'm proud to be an Okie with everything that's going on, and I am a property owner, and I take value in my property, and for something like this to happen, and, they want me to keep the yard cut, they want me to keep the hedges trimmed, and they want me to take care of the property for the city of Oklahoma City, but therefore they're not willing to step in and help me in any way that I have to do to fix these things. I had to come out of pocket for this. I had to make sure that she still had living conditions in that property. But if the grass gets too high or something happens, then the city will put a note on my door. So I understand what you're saying, but I really think that it's really unfair that that law is in place, and there's nothing that we can do about it when I walk out of these doors.
Yeah, well, there are insurance opportunities that can protect you from that, from the damage. And again, there's several of us that believe in your cause.
Because if it was any one of you all's home and, and a line broke, I understand what you're saying, but.
Okay. Thanks for coming down. We're sorry it happened.
Okay. Thank
you. Can I ask one question, Amy?
Yes.
Were there any other properties within this area that, as a result of the main breaking, were there any other properties that was affected, or did we get notice of?
We have not yet received a claim for any other property affected by this water main. Other than that, it would be difficult for me to know, short of doing a survey of water utilities, as to who was called out for caps and that sort of thing.
All right. Charles, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Meg, you want to make a motion?
Yes, I would make a motion.
Okay. The motion is to deny the claims at item 8N.
Yes.
Is there a second? Comments or questions? All right, cast your votes. Motion passes unanimously. Item 9 is claims recommended for approval. 8 items listed. Is there anyone here wishing to speak under any item listed under item 9? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 10 is items from council. And Pete, you have one individual item that you want to discuss and introduce.
I was contacted by a constituent who lives in an area where the streets are relatively narrow and there's some parking on the streets. And on occasion, from his standpoint, very frequently, people park on the streets and block access to the mailboxes. He asked that we look into it, and I asked this to be introduced today and referred to the Traffic Commission because I think they're the proper place to do it. But I did a little bit of checking on it, and he's right about the post office will just drive right on by if they can't get to the mailbox. So it probably happens in other locations in the city, and I thought traffic was the place to do it. So I'm going to move the ordinance, or move it to be referred to the Traffic Commission for they're the experts on that. So.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Pat.
it seems like we're doing what we do occasionally, and we always seem to get in trouble for it, is to pass an ordinance to solve a single problem. I've been on the council for 7 years now, and I have lots of neighborhoods with mailboxes in front of the houses. I have lots of neighborhoods with narrow streets, lots of parking on the streets by yard people, by maintenance people, by the property owners. I've never had a complaint. I've seen post office people get out of their truck and go around and put mail in a box they couldn't get to from their truck. So it's not a universal problem. I have a problem with the policy of adopting an ordinance to solve a single problem. It's not citywide. There are probably wards here that have very few of those kind of mailboxes in their wards. And furthermore, it seems like the remedy is very extreme, to allow a vehicle to be impounded when there's no sign. The ordinance specifically says there'll be no notification other than just our efforts up here and a press release, perhaps. And I just feel that we're making a mistake by going this direction.
I would urge you to show up at the Traffic Commission and argue against it when it's presented.
I've argued against it.
All I'm asking is the Traffic Commission consider it. If the Traffic Commission agrees with you, Pat, well, then it won't ever come back to us.
Well, I think we put the Traffic Commission in an awkward place. We put the Traffic Commission in a very awkward position by sending this to them, because inherently that suggests that there was, we were in favor of it. And I think we are the policymakers, and I think we ought to stand up and stop the bad policies before they get to our various commissions if we can.
Yeah, I guess we just have to agree to disagree. I'm just going to ask the Traffic Commission to look at it. Whatever they come up with is going to be okay with me. I'm not, in fact, most ordinances we have, most of the rules are to cure specific problems. Very unusual for one that's not that way. So
The concern I have, Pete, and I don't know how much research you've done into it, the fact that some of the carriers will stop and get out of their vehicle and put mail in there is a prerogative of them. They literally don't have to if they don't want to. And in the motorized carriers, they need enough space to not only right in front of the box, they're going to have space to pull that unit as they go into the box and space to pull or go out of the box. So you're talking about a much longer area than just directly in front of the mailbox.
right.
So I think when they start researching how much space that would be in front of every yard, it may be prohibitive. I don't know.
It may be. All I did was contact, the guy contacted me, I contacted the post office and asked him if the mailbox is blocked, does the mail carrier, motorized mail carrier, have to put mail in the box? The answer was no. So that's all it's about.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes to send this to Traffic Commission. Motion fails. It's 4-4. Motion passes. People are backtracking on me here. Okay, well, I was just making sure because it's so unusual to have a motion. Motion fails. It's 4-4. All right, items from council. Gary? Okay. Ed?
I appreciated the turnout at the town hall meeting last night on the boulevard. I would encourage people to attend a meeting that's being put on, a public meeting being put on by ODOT next Tuesday on August 21st at 5:30 p.m. at the Coca-Cola Event Center in Bricktown. That will be a public meeting which will address decreasing the boulevard from 6 lanes to 4, but also a chance to ask questions about other design considerations. I guess I have a technical question, and that's that when we had the head of the Congress for New Urbanism, the Mayor Norquist, who came and surveyed and has read, he said the same thing that some people have said locally and that I've read on national blogs. Street Blog did a story about our situation, and that is the possibility of just having the I-40 come into the grid and use your existing grid, just have it come and use, instead of building a boulevard, just use the funds to improve your existing street grid as an alternative. And so I guess if we're going to engage a consultant to look at alternatives, I would ask that that alternative be considered. But as a technical question, do you need a legal opinion as to, I mean, can that be done, given our history with the whole asking ODOT as a mitigation step?
There's a couple of underlying questions there. One is, you're correct, is there a legal issue with the record of decision that was adopted by the state and the feds? Would that be in accordance with that, and could that be done? And the other question is, from a technical standpoint, would it functionally work? And so those are, I think, are both legitimate questions, Councilman, and something that we should both pursue.
Do you have to answer the legal question before you could engage the consultant or ask them to consider that option?
We can probably do that concurrently.
Okay. Well, then I would ask, if we're going to engage a consultant, that they look at that as an option.
Don't have any problem with that at all.
When will the consultant's report be ready for us?
We haven't engaged, we've selected a consultant. We're negotiating scope with them at this point. But it should be, I hate to put a time frame on because we don't have a contract in place, but it's going to be, 6, 8, 10 weeks. Mr. Ryan, I would think it'd be somewhere in that.
So clearly it won't be ready in time for the DOT's public meeting to discuss it.
It won't be ready for Tuesday night. But I think Tuesday night will be an opportunity to get some input on this issue.
Well, I would hope that the DOT meeting Tuesday night would clear the air because there's so many misconceptions as to what this design is actually like, floating through the community. I think one of the most important things we could do at that August 21st meeting is to have everybody walk away with the facts as to what is being proposed and how it's going to impact traffic.
Jim, what's your understanding of the scope of that August 21st meeting?
The August 21st meeting was to talk about deviation to the record of decision. And the major deviation of the record of decision at this point in time is the city's request to modify the boulevard width from 6 lanes to 4 lanes. And so that's why there's a meeting. I'm sure it will delve into other areas at the meeting.
Okay.
David? If I'm not mistaken, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but the going 6 to 4 and the public meeting on that and so forth, the discussions that are going on about each end of the boulevard and all of that are things that would have to go back to the Federal Highway Commission to get reevaluated and approved to spend that money, because the concept, the way it was drawn originally, is what's been approved. Is that valid?
I don't know where we draw the line where we come back into going out for further development. For example, if we were to bring part of the boulevard down grade in the area of concern in that western Classen area, if part of that was brought in, it was in the same right-of-way and such, that may not have to go back. I think it depends on how much we deviate from the original design, Councilman.
Okay.
And so I think we're going to come up with some concepts, and maybe there'll be a concept that won't deviate that much, and maybe there'll be one that'll be significantly a deviation that we'll have to go back. I don't think I can answer that for you today.
David? Meg?
Mayor, I did just have a couple of things. I would like to echo Councilman Shazid's thanks for all the folks that showed up at the meeting. As I said last night, I think there are lots of nonprofits that would have died to have the size of the crowd there at one of their events that we had for the Boulevard meeting, and I thought it was very well done. We did have an awful lot of staff there, and again, I'd like to particularly recognize Debbie Martin and Boyd for being there for the duration, but we had a number of staff. I just think for those watching, it's important to know that this is not a 9-to-5 job or an 8-to-5 job, and we have asked a lot of staff to be present at lots of after-hours meetings, and I really appreciate that. I want to remind everybody that the Myriad Gardens continues to host their film series on Wednesday nights. They're showing movies outdoors from about 9 o'clock as soon as it gets dark, and we're now selling popcorn and bottled water, and it's a really fun event. Families are bringing blankets and kids and picnics, and it's just lovely. So I'd encourage folks to come take advantage of that. I'd like to congratulate the Plaza District for their Urban Pioneers Award. A week ago or so, they recognized Wayne and Michelle Coyne for their efforts in the Plaza District, and it's a great event and really promotes the various pockets of commercial revitalization that are going on in the city, and they did a wonderful job. Thank you, Mayor.
Skip?
Yes. Several months ago, the council had a very lengthy engagement as it related to one of the telecommunication towers in reference to the hearings. Something great came out of that as a result of another application in reference to a telecommunication tower that was to be located in northeast Oklahoma City at 6500 North Lottie, which was basically referred to from the citizens as the Persimmon Hills Neighborhood Association and also the Coles Garden. I mention this only because it's a good example of how the processes do work when everyone sits down and try to have some understanding in reference to the mission and the concern and the effects that it may have on the community. As a result of the first hearing that we had, the application that was being made from a representative from Tulsa, Mr. William LaFortune, has met with the Neighborhood Association, has met with the City of Oklahoma City. We, as the council, suggested that a consultant engineer be hired to address these issues as it relates to alternative sites as in reference to telecommunication towers. That was done, and through the continued dialogue with the representative, the applicant, and his representatives, and the Neighborhood Association and myself, they did look at alternative sites based upon the reports from the consultant, and alternative sites were identified, and as a result, there has been a move that has been more productive for the applicant and also for the Neighborhood Association. And so I would like to thank Mr. LaFortune, his company, Mr. Box and his office, and the Neighborhood Association at Persimmon Hills in reference to the continued courtesies that they had as it relates to this project. And as we see today, we will not be going through another trial of a telecommunication that was a marathon, and the applicant has withdrawn at this time for purposes of looking at alternative sites. Thank you.
Councilman Kelly should also be recognized for the amount of effort that he put in, working with the neighborhoods, working with the applicant, getting the consultant study done in place. And I know that Skip put in a lot of hours to make this, to get all the issues and facts out on this particular case and facilitate communication. So,
Pat?
Are we going to have a report on the ISO thing?
We are.
Okay, I just like to, I mean, before the report comes in, I'd like to compliment the city staff and the fire department in particular with getting our ISO numbers increased or decreased, I guess, because one is the best, and it's the worst. But at any rate, it may have a significant impact on all the citizens of Oklahoma City in terms of what they pay for fire insurance. And I think it was also a reinforcement of the idea that we have the very best fire department in the country serving us. They do an excellent job of protecting our citizens, and this kind of a rating, I think, reflects that quality work. So, in advance of their presentation, I'll compliment on it, and if they have some things that are bad in there, I'll revise them.
All right. Jim?
That was my lead-in to the, that was it. The ISO report is really positive. It was a good teamwork as it went forward. We've got a great fire department. Those were my lead-in comments for Chief Bryant to come up and talk about a very time-consuming, complex issue regarding our ISO classification. So with that, Chief Bryant.
Good morning. Good to be here. And Mayor and Council, it's a privilege for me this morning to present this report on our recent ISO classification process. I remember it may have been about this time last year there was an article in the Oklahoman about the ISO ratings of Oklahoma cities, and it wasn't a very glowing article as far as the ratings of a lot of the cities across the state. And again, that generated some discussion, and Councilman Ryan in particular had some questions about our ISO rating. And lo and behold, late last year, the ISO was doing some other cities in the state and notified us that they would be conducting an official audit of the city, which hasn't been done in some time. So with that, talk a little bit about the process, and just to kind of give you some background. The ISO, or the Insurance Services Office, is the leading supplier of actuarial and statistical, underwriting, and claims data services to the property and casualty insurance industry. So the insurance industry, as far as calculating property insurance rates, again, sometimes and to different and varying degrees, uses ISO classifications in order to determine those rates. What the ISO does when they conduct an audit is they develop a public protection classification, or PPC, and again, and that's based on a community-wide evaluation. So they don't just look at any specific things so much as it's kind of broad-based across the community, so they don't pick and choose areas. But it does give insurers and the insurance industry the most up-to-date and reliable information about a community's fire protection services. Are we working together? The criteria that they use is developed from an objective review of features of available fire protection. Again, that would have a lot of influence on minimizing damage once a fire has occurred. So again, as far as part of the fire department's mission, just under protection of life is the protection of property, and so that goes along with that very well. They use a 100-point scoring system where the spread, or the classification rating of that public protection classification, is 10 points. Class 1 being the best you can achieve, and to Class 10 being what you don't want to get. Got it? Thank you. That classification, again, is based on thorough grading of a community's fire mitigation efforts and the location of property relative to fire stations and available water sources. This is, again, was a total city, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but again, there's 3 city departments that are basically have a lot of influence on this classification and that come under the ISO's review. And you can see there on the screen the departments that are involved. So our communication system, our public safety communications, is 10% of the overall rating. The fire department obviously being the bigger portion of that, 50%. and the available water supply for firefighting is 40% of the overall classification. And again, this applies to both residential and commercial property. Don't want to try and get too detailed about this, but in some cases, some cities are given just a single classification, and it's probably really based on size. And then some are given a split classification, which that's what we have, and again, that probably has a lot to do with our large geographic area. But again, that single classification number would cover all properties within the jurisdiction, and then the split classification, look at properties that are within 5 road miles of a fire station, but over 1,000 feet from any type of established water supply or water source, and those areas are generally given a Class 9. There is another part of the rating, Class 10. Again, that's the least desirable, but any property that's over 5 road miles from a fire station is given a Class 10 regardless of their proximity to a water supply. And then again, all others fall in within the 1 to 8 category. We were last graded by the ISO in 1993 and received a split classification of 3.9, and basically a lot of that, they did take our information at that time and as far as the number of fire stations, the number of apparatus, and so forth. But a lot of that classification at that time was based on fire loss statistics here in the city. And so therefore, at that time, a comprehensive audit, as was just recently done, was not completed. With the 3.9 split that we had at that time, there were still obviously areas of the city that were rated at 10 because of the distance to the nearest fire station, as we just spoke about. So that brings us up to first of this year. So January 31st, again, we were notified earlier that ISO would be conducting a comprehensive and complete audit, and so we put together a team and met with the ISO on January 31st. And so you can see that the people within the city, the staff that made up that team, and just while I'm on that, you can see that for the fire department, our fire marshal, Deputy Chief Kelly Sawyers, who's here with me today, was the project manager, and I can tell you that she not only had a good team working with her, as I'm sure she would tell you also, but did a wonderful job as far as how comprehensive this was an undertaking. So she's to be commended for her work in this. She was the lead from the, and again, as we moved through it, not only led the team through everything that they needed to do as far as assignments, but also was in always close contact with ISO, so that process of actually receiving the rating didn't drag on too long. But it does give you an idea of how comprehensive this was, and you can see the departments there and the personnel involved, you know, in communications, in Oklahoma City IT, and in the water department, obviously. So a lot of the preliminary work was completed through emails, and a lot of data that was collected and given to the ISO as requested by them for to begin their process and prior to their first return visit. Again, one of the biggest parts of this that they actually had to do that you couldn't do by email or couldn't do by just data that you sent them was that they wanted a complete tour of our 911 communications center to see the equipment, the systems, as far as phone, radio. They actually had to complete a system failure test to basically test the redundancy of the system, to make sure that there was sufficient backups, to make sure that, again, notification as far as emergencies could be done without any type of interruption. So I'm sure, as you've seen in your tours of that facility, that the ISO saw a very modern interoperable communication system and state-of-the-art emergency communications center. On the fire side, again, not only just the stations, the number of stations that we have in the city, but a complete inventory of our fire department fleet, the number and the condition of our apparatus, the specific equipment that each of those apparatus carries, had to be inventoried, and that information had to be forwarded to the ISO. Not only our frontline equipment, but any reserve apparatus that we have in our fleet we had to give them all that information as well. Verification and documentation of our annual testing, as far as testing of pumps, aerial ladders, those types of things, to make sure that we were keeping up with that. And again, the final report generated and included all that information. The ISO audit submission is what we so the documentation that we ordinarily keep. Again, this isn't something we just did for this process, but this is just something that's ongoing in our department as far as maintaining proper documentation of inventories and testing and so forth was very helpful in the information that we forwarded to ISO. They look at our training records on the department, and again, requires very specific and detailed information about our training facilities, the amount of training that goes on at the company or at the station level, the amount of training we do for our supervisors and officers on the department, our apparatus operator or driver training that we conduct, hazardous materials, and so forth, and any pre-fire planning, obviously, that we do, which, again, we have a pre-fire planning program that's been going on now for many, many years. So all those records, again, were compiled, they were available, and we submitted those as far as this process was concerned. Here's, I think, where one of the main areas where it helped us in the improvement that we achieved. We did time tests to certify each partner jurisdiction's apparatus. So, again, because of the size of our city and the relationship that we have with the metro area departments, we actually had to bring them in, and in the areas that aren't covered by the city's water system, to demonstrate how much water that we could produce in again, where we're areas that don't have hydrants available for firefighting water. Again, those test results were entered into ISO's computer model. Again, and that requirement is 250 gallons per minute for a duration of 2 hours. So, again, we did some tests, and we'll show you who all cooperated with us that here in a second, but, 250 gallons a minute times 2 hours is 30 gallons. 30,000 gallons that we had to show that we were capable of supplying in areas where we don't have hydrants. So you can imagine what an undertaking that was. These are the departments that cooperated with us in that testing, and we want to thank them very much. Obviously, we have good relationships, reciprocal relationships through our mutual aid agreements with these departments, and they helped us out very much, and certainly we would be more than happy to return the favor if they go through this same process at some point. This map will show you where those tests were conducted, so you can see they're mainly in the outlying areas. And again, we tested in all these areas for ISO's benefit to show that in all these areas, through our mutual aid agreements, that we could provide that necessary fire flow of 250 gallons a minute for 2 hours. And the information that we got back from the ISO on that we lead the state in hauled or transported water operations. There's like a top 5, and we're right up there in that top 5, and we're also found out that we're among the top 14 or the top 30% in the country in being able to deliver water in that manner. I can tell you that, again, this is maybe the biggest factor in lowering that classification to what we were able to do. And the man that was primarily responsible for that, or this was his part of the project, is with us today. I'm going to call him former Major Kevin Stone King. He was a member of our department until here just recently when he retired, and now he's working for the insurance office of the State Department of Oklahoma Insurance Department. And Kevin, if you'd like to comment on that in any way, feel free.
Thank you. Appreciate the chance to talk to you guys, and what an honor it's been being an Oklahoma City firefighter for 27 and a half years, And I got the call in January to head the hall water portion of the ISO review. And I didn't see the prize at the end at first, but I do now. And personal note for me, this put me on the radar with the Oklahoma Insurance Department. So now I'm the ISO coordinator for the Oklahoma Insurance Department. My job is to go around and encourage departments around the state to lower their ISO rating. There's over 1,600 departments statewide, and 52% of them are rated a 9 or a 10. And I don't believe that's a correct reflection of the fire service in Oklahoma, as it was not a correct reflection of the fire service here in Oklahoma City. We're better than that. And that's my job now, is to encourage the departments to go through all the hoops that it takes, and there is a lot. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle to put together for a department, and not just the fire, but the water and the communications. So it was my honor, and I'm certainly glad to have done it, and I'm happy to be where I'm at today. Thanks, Chief.
Just to remind you, in the outlying areas, we have 6 heavy tankers. Originally, they were 2,500 gallons, and this is how we achieve. You can see the operation there in the picture of those heavy tankers come in, set up portable tanks, drop water, and through a shuttle system, and again, using some of our partners from around the metro area, can maintain that fire flow. Of our 6 tankers, we start out with 2,500 gallon. We're replacing some of those now with 3,000 gallon tankers. And again, get 3 of those converted over to 3,000 gallons in November through our vehicle replacement program. So kind of the timeline, again, January 31st is when we kicked this off with our pre-survey meeting. We started the tanker shuttle testing with the partner departments in February, and that went through March. Completed our apparatus inventories in March. April 3rd, we did our pre-submission meeting and communication center tour and water facilities tour and interview at that point when the ISO came in and visited. And then by April 15th, we had all documentation and information submitted to ISO for their review. And July 20th, so just here recently, we did receive our notification of our new classification. And you see there, again, as we once were a 3-9, now we're a 3, still in the areas that were originally 3. And that FPSA you see there is Fire Protection Service areas. Again, that's to be considered the areas that are covered by the water system. And the 510 on the OPA, or what is referred to as outside the protected area. So going back to that split classification of a 3-9, we went to a 3-5. So we would have been, I can tell you this, we would have been tickled to death. And I don't know that any of us even anticipated that we could get to even a 3-7, but we would have been absolutely thrilled to do that. So when we found out that the work that we put into this actually got us to a 3-5, again, it was a little bit even unbelievable on our part. And that, again, is the most significant improvement. What ISO does also is when you submit your information, as they do, give you some recommendations on what could improve it even further. And so we'll absolutely look at some of these points that you see up there as far as suggestions on not necessarily mutual aid, but automatic mutual aid. Again, we do a good job of documenting all of our training internally on our department, but we probably need to do a better job of documenting our training with other departments. Again, on those heavy tankers that we were seeing earlier, we do automatically respond to in areas that are not covered by hydrants. And again, they recommended that we maintain that, recommended that we add in an additional tanker. And that last bullet point you see there is that new fire stations are built, that classification will decrease even more. So as you're aware of, through the 2007 general obligation bond issue, we proposed and the citizens approved the addition of 3 additional stations. And it just so happens that those 3 stations will be in areas where it will make a difference as far as decreasing that classification in those areas. And one of those will start this year, Southwest 119th and Rockwell. So this map gives you an indication of the areas in the city that are within 5 road miles of a fire station. So you can see there's a little swath in the southwest corner there. There's a little pocket down there kind of in the southeast area and so forth that, again, will be addressed with the addition of those fire stations over the next few years. On the next map, we overlay the areas that are covered by hydrants. So now you can see the remaining green areas there. Those are the areas that were previously a 9 that, because of our ability to provide water at that rate in those areas, will drop to a 5. And again, as you all know, there's several homes and businesses and so forth in those areas that could see some benefit from that. So what the economic impact, and again, I want to be very careful here and maybe say potential economic impact. I mean, and it's yet to be seen at this point, and we'll discuss that here in a moment. But from some of the surveys that we've done of some of the insurance carriers here locally, reducing from a 9 to 5 in those areas, some people could see as much as a 50% drop in their insurance rates because of that classification. And again, it's in your city manager's report, but you have to understand, and we want our citizens to understand, obviously, that some carriers do use ISO very heavily in calculation of rates. Some use it to lesser degrees, and there's some that do not use ISO at all and more of a loss history type of criteria. But what I would say, and again, I appreciate Councilman Ryan's comments prior to me coming up, but and it is a reflection of the fire department that we have and the commitment of our people as far as providing fire service in the city. But I would also say this is a potential very good dividend for the investment that our citizens have made in public safety over the years, as far as, again, the equipment that we have, the staffing that we have, and again, their support of bond issues to continue to build up public safety. So apart from the great emergency response and other services that we provide, again, this is an additional benefit that they could realize for their investment, and I don't think enough can be said about that. Before I conclude and take any questions, I would like to, again, thank the whole team within the city. Again, it was a total city effort, a lot of work, a lot of good work, and again, I think the effort that we put into it paid off in a big way. We truly could have done this in a cursory way just to get through it, and we wouldn't have realized the improvement that we got had we done it in that fashion. And I'd also like to introduce a couple other guests that we have with us today. Senator Randy Brogdon, who's now working for the Oklahoma Insurance Department, and Philip Bradley, who's with the ISO. And Philip could probably address any questions specific to the ISO or even comment on what the process may have been like working with Oklahoma City. But I appreciate them being here with us today. And with that, I'm glad to take any questions.
Gary? Well, as you can imagine, I can't just go without comment. And regardless of what the former water director said, it was only 40% water supply, Mr. Cowden. That doesn't mean that you should be fire chief at some point in time. We fought over that for many years. I do, too, want to recognize Kevin for his work. Even when I was still the chief, I can remember Kevin having many ideas about the design and the use of water supply apparatus, and he's been very interested in this, has worked the outlying areas for a number of years, and I appreciate the work he's done on it. I think people that are not in the business don't understand how big a deal it is to get this kind of a rating, and I think it shows what Chief Bryant and his department have been able to do and are willing to do in this area. If there are some people out there saying, yeah, but we've got a 10 in some areas or whatever it may be, you got to understand Oklahoma City, as spread out as it is going to be very hard in our lifetime, certainly, to drop any of that down. You're going to have distributed water supply throughout the entire city, and you're going to have a whole lot more fire stations for that to be impacted. But for what we're able to do right now, I think it's an excellent rating, and it shows the character of the department and their work so far. I'm a little disappointed, and it's been this way for a long time, and I dealt with this when I was the fire chief. The insurance department in the state allows insurance companies to not use ISO, as the chief explained, and use their loss data. And that could be a roll-in of all loss data. They can use loss data from ice storms and tornadoes and wind and whatever it may be to show their loss data for their company in this area, and then get a rate based on that loss data. And I think that, to encourage companies to use this kind of a rating that shows what the departments can actually do is more representative of what your rates ought to be. But until that state law changes, it's going to be real difficult to press the insurance companies to do anything different. But I do want to recognize the department. I think it's a great stride forward, and in the fire world, this is a big deal, and something that Keith and his department ought to be extremely proud of. So my hat's off to you, Chief.
Great staff, did great work on this.
All right.
Thank you, Chief.
Just one other comment, Your Honor. We had some of our basketball players go to the Olympics and come back with gold medals. I think this is the same level of achievement for our fire department. They've won a gold medal in my mind for the activities they've done in this particular study. So thank you very much. Thanks to all the people in your department. Like I said before, you've got one of the finest fire departments in the country right here.
We had a lot of good help from the other departments in the city, too. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Kathy O'Connor is going to join us this morning for a few minutes and talk to us about some of the development going on in downtown Oklahoma City. We've done a lot to make downtown attractive, and I think sometimes we lose sight of some of the development that's going on, and there's actually a lot going on. So with that, Kathy, if you could update us, please.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me be here this morning to talk to you just a few minutes about some of the development projects that we have going on in Oklahoma City. If you remember, the Alliance was created last year to better serve the economic development needs of Oklahoma City. We serve as the lead development entity on projects that require assistance from the public sector, helping to streamline services and increase efficiencies. We collaborate with public and private entities on new development projects, and the presentation today mostly focuses on development projects and not some of the economic development and job creation work that we also help the city with. To get started, we're going to just go through some different projects and talk a little bit about the impact of these projects and the vitality that they're creating, mostly in the downtown area. The first project is the construction of the new Aloft Hotel at 2nd and Walnut. It is a 137-room hotel. It is a project that is OCURA, the Urban Renewal Authority, is involved in, and the city's been involved in. They plan to build 3 restaurants on the first floor, and I think what's interesting about this picture is that you can begin to see kind of that urban street edge being created in the north of Deep Deuce area that really hadn't existed because of all the vacant lots. But we're seeing a lot of development in this area, creating a really very urban neighborhood. Another project in this area is the Maywood Apartments at 4th and Oklahoma. Now, this project just broke ground late last week, so you may not have realized that it's underway, but it's 139 units, an investment of about $15 million again at 4th and Oklahoma. And again, this project involved the Urban Renewal Authority and the Economic Development Trust and the City Council through the allocation of about $1 million in TIF funding. The Hill at Russell M. Perry and 2nd Street has been an ongoing project. It is one of the few for-sale residential projects that's still under construction in Oklahoma City. Last month, the Urban Renewal Authority approved a new phasing plan for this development that begins the purchase by the developer of the tracts that you see outlined in white to begin the construction of new units for this development. Currently, they have sold all of the units that are completed or near completion at this project. There are some that will still be under construction that they'll be beginning soon, but it was important for him to get more inventory to meet the demand of the for-sale market that seems to be coming back in downtown Oklahoma City. This next project is the East Bricktown, we call it East Bricktown, it's Sheridan and Lincoln. This project will involve the City of Oklahoma City through an NSP allocation, the Urban Renewal Authority, because we own land that is a part of this development, and the City of Oklahoma City and the Economic Development Trust through what we anticipate to be a future request for tax increment dollars. This project is especially challenging because there are several utility problems with the site. There's a very large, or two very large, storm sewers that run through the site and make it basically undevelopable, so that assistance from the city through the NSP program and through the TIF program make this development possible. The plan is to build 249 residential units and a hotel on this site. Both will be served by structured parking. So again, this will begin to build that urban neighborhood on the east end of Bricktown and offer a great anchor for that east end. The next project is one, again, that the city's been involved in for many years. The Carnegie Center is the former downtown library building that the city offered through an RFP process to developer several years ago for sale, and we sold it to a developer who has now come back with a TIF request, and that was approved last week. So that project will begin construction probably within the next couple of weeks. It's 19 residential units, about $7.5 million of investment, commercial retail space on the first floor, so it'll become a mixed-use development once it's completed. The developer, again, has received a TIF allocation and will also make use of historic tax credits. This building is on the National Register now and is qualified for both state and federal historic tax credits and new market tax credits to make this project possible. The Edge at Midtown is an urban renewal project. Again, this is at the old Mercy Hospital site at 13th and Walker that has sat vacant or with an old hospital on it for probably about 20 years now. This project is 249 very high-end residential units that will be constructed on this site. We anticipate that groundbreaking will be sometime in September. It's about a $36 million investment that the developer plans to make, and they've received a $2.3 million TIF allocation for this project. They will have, the project includes 486 structured parking spaces, many of which will help to serve the Midtown area, that provide public parking to support some of the other developments in Midtown. The next few projects that we're going to look at are projects that have been undertaken by the Midtown Renaissance Group. They have received two different TIF allocations over the past couple of years to help make these projects possible. The total of those two allocations was about $2.3 million, and their total investment is about $24 million. These projects, I think, really exemplify the creative reuse of buildings that are in existence in Oklahoma City and really have helped to create kind of a vibrant feel in the Midtown area. This first one is 1212 North Walker. It's 24 residential units with about 4,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor for restaurants or retail. The next one is the Klein at 230 Northwest 10th. It includes 12 residential units. Then the Osler Hotel at 1200 North Walker is under contract to become a boutique hotel, and that will begin renovations shortly. The Guardian at 1117 North Robinson is another mixed-use development with, I think, about 40-some apartments in it, mostly loft spaces, and then commercial and restaurant space on the first floor. They have some really great concepts for restaurants and other commercial activities for the first floor space that will really help liven up that end of Robinson. 430 Northwest 12th Street is another residential project. Now this building, if you drove by it today, you would never recognize it. It's kind of a very nondescript, two-story brick building, and their plans are to completely recreate this building into a very interesting residential development, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it turns out. The next project is another project that the city is working on with the Midtown Renaissance Group, and it is to construct a parking garage at Northwest 10th Street, just west of Broadway. This project is another tax increment financing assisted project. They have received or have been approved to receive an allocation of $3 million. $2 million of that will be a grant. The other $1 million we are going to structure as a loan. So they will repay the TIF fund so that we can reuse those proceeds for other projects in the future. And we think that's a really good formula for us to use in the future to help make our TIF dollars go farther. This project is really important because it helps support the development of some commercial space in Midtown at the 1100 and the 1101 North Broadway buildings, but it also makes possible the redevelopment of the Marion Hotel, which is a very old historic hotel building in this area that has absolutely no parking, and to develop it into residential would have been impossible without having this new parking nearby. The parking garage will have about 300 spaces, so we think that it'll provide adequate parking as Automobile Alley and the Midtown area continue to grow, help support some of the restaurants on 9th Street off of Broadway. The next project is the Arts District parking garage. The Alliance has been working with COTPA and Urban Renewal to help address the parking shortages in downtown Oklahoma City. And this is one of the projects that we've been working on quite a bit lately. The proposed site is just south of City Hall. Part of it is the surface parking lot where you park to come to council meetings, and the other part of it is the Hightower parking lot behind the Hightower building. So COTPA is in negotiations with the Hightower properties to purchase their property and develop a 750-space parking garage on this site, but it will be developed as a mixed-use development with retail and commercial space on the first floor, probably about 20 to 25,000 square feet of commercial space will be able to fit on the first floor of this development. And Urban Renewal is going to request of COTPA to retain the redevelopment rights to possibly develop residential or some other commercial use on the top of the parking garage. We think that it's really important to use this site in a mixed-use kind of development. So we would offer that to a private developer to build the residential. It would not be undertaken by COTPA or Urban Renewal directly. The next project is the John W. Rex Elementary School. This project is to be constructed at Sheridan and Walker on a piece of property that is owned by the Urban Renewal Authority. And we've been working with the Maps for Kids office and the school district and the Quality Schools Committee to develop the downtown elementary school. And the redevelopment agreement for this project and the schematic designs go to the Urban Renewal Authority tomorrow, and we hope to begin this project and get it completed by August of 2014. Now, this project does include Maps for Kids money and an allocation of tax increment financing dollars to help make it possible, plus a sizable commitment from the private Quality Schools Committee to complete the project.
That's actually on the school trust agenda for this afternoon.
For this afternoon, right. One of the other projects that we've been working on, and I guess you guys will get to go see some of the fruits of our labor up close and personal here in a few minutes, is the property acquisition for the MAPS 3 projects. We've had the acquisition underway for the Central Park for quite some time, and I would say we are 95% complete with that acquisition process. We have a few parcels that are either will go through the condemnation process or are there, but everything else is under contract or acquired. We continue to work on the acquisition for the convention center and the multimodal transit hub. And then the City Council allocated $2.3 million in TIF funds to the Urban Renewal Authority a few months ago for the private redevelopment piece, and we are beginning those acquisition processes. We have offers out on some of the parcels. We're looking at completing the acquisition of the block where the Goodwill building is, for example, to have a full block that we can offer for redevelopment. And then finally, one of the things that's included in the contract with the Alliance for this year is a study that we call MAPS 3, Leveraging Private Investment. We really think that it's important that the MAPS 3 projects provide an important catalyst for private development, and that we want to manage that private development process to make sure that we get the type and the kind, the quality of development that the MAPS 3 projects deserve. And so right now, we are in the midst of doing a lot of analysis of the market for commercial and housing, land use and infrastructure issues, how to implement implementation policy to better leverage private investment, and what are some of the best practices that have been used in other communities. Some of the strategies and implementation that we will be looking at is identifying some catalyst developments and doing a complete pro forma analysis so we understand what the development community will be looking for, analyzing financing sources, modeling and how to develop strategies for those, and then examine governance, policy, and management. And some of those things have to do with things like, do we need a different kind of design district in this area, or are the existing design codes sufficient? Are there other things that urban renewal could use to help make sure that the quality and kind of development happens in the future? So we'll probably be contacting some of you to see if you're interested in being interviewed by our consultants over the next few weeks, and look forward to visiting with you about that project. So with that, I'll be glad to take any questions. Just kind of wraps it up.
Kathy, is it possible to get the job creation numbers on each one of these projects?
Some of them, because so many of them are residential, they create a lot of construction jobs. Some of them may not create as many permanent jobs, but we can certainly get that for you. The hotel and some of the others do create quite a few permanent jobs.
Well, even with the construction jobs, I mean, obviously I would, it's creating somebody a place to work for a period of time until the construction is completed. And my other question is, on the elementary school, what is the land acquisition for the elementary school? Do you know?
The Urban Renewal Authority has offered it to, the city and the school district for $200,000. The Urban Renewal Authority owns the land.
What's the size of the land?
It's a square block.
So the design, the rendering that's here, it just looks like it's just kind of straight up and down as far as...
The design of the building is actually in an L, with the building edge along Sheridan and then along Walker. It'll be a 3- or 4-story school with a gymnasium, and then the play area is in that southeast corner. So the diagram, the site plan shows the edge along Walker with the kindergarten, pre-kindergarten areas on the first floor, a lobby. The gym, it runs along Sheridan, and then there's the large play areas planned for that interior courtyard that's kind of created by the L.
I'm hopeful that those drawings will be refined some.
Oh yeah, these are very, very preliminary, and we're just at the schematic design phase, and it's even evolving.
It looks pretty intimidating for kindergartners.
Yeah. We're working on drop-offs and transportation kinds of issues, too.
Kathy, excuse me, did you say that the edge at 13th and Walker will have a separate standalone parking garage?
It has a parking garage that's built into the interior of the apartments itself, but it will be accessible, portion of it will be accessible to the public.
I see, okay. Well, continuing with the discussion on parking, even after the construction of the proposed parking facility here in the Arts District just south of City Hall, I still think the core will still be needing additional parking garages. And will you begin to look at possibly private parking garage partners? I mean, it's not just all going to be copped, is that correct?
We always look for private partners to help us with the parking issue. There is some value in having publicly owned parking to provide adequate parking for the multi-tenant buildings that make up most of downtown. And we are examining several other opportunities to either expand existing parking garages or to build other new ones. But we're always interested in talking with private partners about making that happen. It's similar to the model maybe that we used in Midtown with the parking garage on 10th Street.
Thank you.
Just in terms of, you mentioned that you're requiring a full block around the Central Park. Is it possible to offer that on a lot-by-lot basis as opposed to offering the whole block to a developer?
I think we need to get with the development community and better understand if lot by lot will work or if it's a larger parcel that they really need to make it economically more attractive. They may choose to develop it on a lot by lot basis, but they may want to control more than just a single lot, if you understand what I mean.
But is it possible for the city to provide the infrastructure and then have developers compete to come in?
Yes. I mean, that's typically how urban renewal, for example, has managed its projects in the past. We issue an RFP for redevelopment, and then we take responses from lots of different developers. And, I mean, with the Edge, we got like 7 or 8 responses. So I would assume that the interest in the Court Shore area will be even more than that, just kind of from what I'm hearing from the development community.
On the Edge, did we require how much parking do we require of them?
We don't necessarily have a parking requirement. We use the downtown zoning code, which does not have a minimum or a minimum parking requirement for any development. We use the developer's discretion on how much parking they feel they need to build for their projects. We are hoping that we get to the point someday where it's 1 space per unit or 1.1 space per unit instead of what's been more common in some of our developments, which is almost 2 spaces per unit.
But this is almost 3, right?
Well, there is over 100 spaces in this development that are for public parking for the Midtown area. So for the Unitarian Church that's nearby, the restaurants that are nearby. So there will be a great deal of public parking that changes that ratio some.
And this is an area that the streetcar will go to. Would that?
We think so.
Okay. How many of these projects are in the form of loans? I mean, is that the next phase?
I think really that's the next phase that we will continue to examine and see if we can make use of it more and more. Really, the only one that's in here that's a loan is the parking garage in Midtown. But, okay. And that's a very new project. I mean, it's just approved within the last month. So.
What are your thoughts about the land that Urban Renewal owns along the east side of E.K. Gaylord, around 3rd, kind of coming into Broadway? The Chamber of Commerce was going to go there now at one point. Mm-hmm. Is that land that could eventually be developed?
I think it could be. I mean, I think it's a very good development site for downtown. I know there's people who might disagree with me and think that it's a really good green space, but I see it as a great development opportunity for the future.
Great. Thank you.
Those are our 2 presentations for this morning. I'd be happy to answer any other questions regarding city manager reports.
Any other questions for city manager? All right, citizens to be heard. We have 3 people that have signed up. Kim Howard. Citizens to be heard. We're allowed 3 minutes of comments. Kim, we will need your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. My name is Kimberly Turner, 341 Northwest 87th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Hello.
Hello.
I'm coming on behalf of my family for Robin Howard. We are seeking some help. We were wanting all the information regarding my brother. He died in police custody, and they've not communicated with us, to us. The officers that were involved are still working, and It has been ruled a homicide. They let us know, basically from the same week that we found out that he had passed, they got on the news and let it be known that they're still at work. So they were never taken off work. We don't understand why. We want to know why. You know, we want some answers, and they've kind of blown us off. And the way we were notified, they didn't contact my mother until 4 days after my brother passed. So he never went to jail. He went to the hospital. And before he went to the hospital, they called IMSA. They canceled IMSA, and the police transported him to the hospital. I mean, there's a lot of questions that we have that don't make sense to us, and and we're still grieving as a result of that. But when they contacted us 4 days after his death and kind of acted like it was no big deal, oh, we're investigating it, we'll get back with you. We're still waiting for somebody to get back with us.
How long has it been?
He died, they informed us June the 28th. So nobody has gotten back with us.
Jim, how long does it typically take for a report to be wrapped up and be made public?
I can't answer that, but Chief City's here to answer. They can answer that. First of all, we're sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
He passed away at the hospital on the 24th. It was 4 days. They are correct. It was 4 days before the family was actually notified. The police department really did drop the ball because we had an officer that was given the responsibility of making notification. He did make a report that he said he was unable to make that notification or find the next of kin, and then didn't notify any supervisors that we followed up on it. And so when homicide finally got it, when homicide got the case, because originally IA was investigating the case.
IA's Internal Affairs.
Internal Affairs was investigating the case because of the number of injuries and that he was put in the hospital. Well, when he died, then it's transferred to homicide because it now becomes a criminal investigation, basically possibly a homicide based on the fact that his death was as a result of the arrest and the use of force that was used against him. So when homicide received the information, they realized that the notification had not been made, and that was about 4 days afterwards, and we take that very seriously, and we did drop the ball on that and take responsibility for that. Homicide did make the notification. There's been several communications with the family based on what is occurring in the investigation, that it has to be complete. We took the investigation to the district attorney's office because we completed the investigation about 3 or 4 weeks ago. But the district attorney did not want to review the investigation until that they could determine or they could see the medical examiner's report, and we didn't get that till yesterday. So there were some things that could have been done better. It was a little bit of a strange situation, the fact that in most cases, at a use of force, the subject actually went to the hospital, was interviewed, was doing pretty well, and actually died of pneumonia on the 24th. He was taken to the hospital on the 19th. So there's legitimate complaint there based on the fact that we did not make notification in a timely enough manner than we should have.
Bill, can you clarify how, the procedure for when an incident like this happens and how you handle the police officers involved in this?
Well, the officers themselves, when Mr. Howard expired, the officers were placed on restricted duty. When we conduct a criminal investigation, the officers were placed on administrative leave and then restricted duty pending the outcome of the investigation. So the officers have actually been off the street and not working in their normal capacity, in an enforcement capacity, from the time that Mr. Howard expired.
And that's standard procedure?
That's standard procedure. So it is under investigation. We do have the ME's report now. The process now goes, all of our reports, all of the information from the witnesses, officers, the statements from Mr. Howard himself will go to the district attorney's office, and he will review it to make a determination whether or not any criminal charges are warranted in this case.
What can the family do to get a copy of any of these documents?
We will not release copies of the investigative reports at this point in the investigation. Their attorney, they have retained an attorney, and that attorney is aware that at some point, if there's criminal charges filed or if there's some civil litigation, that he will get a copy of all of those reports, but it'll be through the courts. We do not consider those reports and those as open record. They are entitled to a copy of the crime incident report, but they do not get a copy. We do not release a copy of any other supplemental or follow-up investigative reports, whether it's administrative or investigative. They are not considered open record. And we responded to their attorney through Rick Smith. Rick Smith has been assisting us. When we received a letter last week from the attorney, we responded back and mailed that letter out to them last Wednesday.
All right, thanks.
As far as I know, we didn't receive that, but we still weren't informed, like who was on administrative leave. The 2 officers are all 4 of them, because they said it was 2 that was involved and 2 that witnessed it.
Right. 2 officers that were involved in the use of force are the ones that were placed on restricted duty. Not all 4.
And so that's not public record?
No, that is public.
Okay, but that's what I'm asking, because we didn't know that.
Yeah.
We're knowing that now, and somebody mentioned it yesterday, but, when we were contacted, it was June the 28th. It's just that we felt like it was totally disrespectful, and it wasn't handled in a manner that it should have been, and then he died in police custody, and nobody ever contacted us. And there was information, because we have the medical report, and my mother's number and name was on there. So she was never contacted while he was in the hospital. So is that because of you all, or because y'all had a guard on the door? Because we still should have been contacted of his declining medical situation.
Family members were aware that he was in the hospital. They came, when he was arrested, the car was impounded. Family members came to the police department to recover his vehicle. They were advised that he was in the hospital.
No, we were not. I'm the one who went down there. I took my mother down there and filled out the paperwork to get her car released, and we had to pay $140. I talked to a Detective Bowen, and I told him, I've been calling the jail for 2 days. They keep saying that my brother's not here, Robin Leander Howard. He said, oh, they have a warrant for him in another county. So I was misled by somebody at the city police station. I'm the one who went down there. At no point were we notified that he was in the hospital. We didn't even know he was in there until Detective Benavides contacted us June the 28th and said that he died. And when he called my older sister, she kept saying, no, he's in jail. She didn't know who he was talking about. She's screaming and hollering on the phone. So no, I went down there. I'm the one who went. So they never informed me. They kept making me believe that another county picked him up.
Well, I agree with her that we didn't notify them to the 28th. The information I have is that they were notified the next day when they picked the car up, but I'll have to follow up on that to make sure. I'm not going to say that she's not being truthful here. I'm just saying that I'll have to follow up on that. All of that will be looked at administratively, including what she talked about as far as the ambulance being canceled. He was transported by police car to the hospital. So all those things, if there's any protocol or any policies or procedures that weren't followed, those will be looked at and reviewed administratively to determine whether or not proper procedures were followed. So at this point, those things like not being notified that he was in the hospital and those types of things will be looked at more closely.
Okay.
But they are being investigated.
Okay. And typically, how long does the district attorney take to
It varies. You know, like I said, we've had the investigation completed, our side of the investigation, for at least 3 weeks. We will get it to him. If they didn't get it to him yesterday, it'll probably be today because we now have the medical examiner's report. We have no control over that, and it varies. It could be a week, it could be 3 or 4 weeks. It just depends.
Okay.
So, and I have one final question. So, are you saying that we as the family don't have, we can't have copies of, what happened to him?
Well, at some point,
we have to sue you or go to
they've
court?
retained an attorney. At some point, that attorney can get access to those through the court system, through subpoenas, or if criminal charges are filed, then the DA will have that responsibility of releasing that information to their attorney to be able to know what the circumstances were. But we don't, and we will sit down at some point and be willing to sit down and discuss some of some of the findings and things that we have with the families we always have. But at this point during the investigation, that district attorney has the right to see that information, review that information, and make his decisions prior to any release of any type of information. But the reports will not be released. Those reports that aren't considered open record will not be released without a subpoena and direction from the courts.
Okay, I have another question. Are y'all, is it a part of your investigation? Because when the incident happened, it was less than a mile from the Oklahoma City Hospital, OMH Presbyterian. We want to know, why was he transported way to Southwest Medical on Southwest 44th? I mean, the hospital was less than a mile away.
Kim, I don't think those are the types of questions he's going to be able to answer without having been there in that situation. And I know you want answers today, and I don't think you're going to get any more answers today, but it sounds like you've hired an attorney, and the attorney will be working with our police officers, and certainly the district attorney over across the street at the county will be working this case too. I understand your frustration, and we're all very sorry it happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we are.
Thank you for coming down. We appreciate the show of support for him. Ronnie Kirk.
My name is Ronnie Kirk. I live at 2328 North Missouri, Oklahoma City.
Who'd you bring with you here today, Ronnie?
Oh, this is my little grandson. I brought him down because I want him to get used to coming to this type of arena instead of going back and forth at jailhouse. So he's been wanting to come with me. I just come down to give you some good positive news from the northeast side of town. This year we had a very successful Juneteenth. I've been in business 40 years in one location. I feed the kids for 2 days. And I also want to let you know, Miss Norma Kirk, she's 107 years old this June the 2nd. And Lucille Kirk, she's 90 years old, September the 2nd. I also spoke at Star Spencer High School on 3 occasions to the seniors and juniors. They said the kids were receptive, whatever we spoke to them about, and the kids requested that we came back and speak to them again, which I was proud to do. It was an honor. For years, I've been feeding the kids on the northeast side of town. I have 20 years of city permits in my hand today. And I also want to let you know that this past Juneteenth, I've sent out flyers which I've given to the council, letting the kids know that every Thursday, I'm going to feed kids under 12 years old free. I set my property up, cleaned it up, got a nice patio, bought a $2,000 moonwalk for them. It'll be free for them. They can come up and enjoy themselves at my place of business. My grandkids going to help me out, and I'm going to help them out also by teaching them and instilling work qualities in them. I also like to let you know, the police came to the neighborhood about 2 months ago, and they walked around. They just wanted to ask the neighbors how we were doing, which was perfect, was fine. I think we got a good report to the city, from the city. It was a police officer in uniform and one in a suit, and they asked questions how we were doing. So I just come down to let them know that we're doing fine. They want to know how I was able to stay in business all these years. I was instilled in me years ago by my mother and grandmother. I have no greed. When you have no greed, you can put kids and people first. That's the reason I'm able to stay in business. I have no greed. I care about all people and young people. I try to teach them as much as I can. So I just come down to give you those some good positive news from the east side.
All right. Ronnie, thanks for coming down and letting us know.
Thank you.
Michael Hinton.
Thank you, Your Honor and Counsel. I'm Michael Hinton of 333 Northwest 5th Street here in downtown Oklahoma City. And I come here today to share with you, I'm very ecstatic. I've been reviewed some of the recent presentations on the Riverfront District and the Boathouse. And I'm a new member of the Urban Downtown Neighborhood Association, and I'm very excited of what is going on down on the riverfront, and it sort of reminds me almost of the days I lived in London, England, on the River Thames. And with that, the momentum that's going on here in Oklahoma City, I have volunteered to serve some of my time to participate in activities along the riverfront, and also another friend has come forward to join me in that endeavor. And you know, the excitement of what is going on and the development on the riverfront, Oklahoma City very well could one day be a site for the Summer Olympics. And you know, I say that out of a positive attitude, as the Christ has said, all things are possible to them that believeth. Thank you, you folks.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for coming down. We have executive session. We'll be back.